What's going on, Big Slong Gamers? It is Benson, and today we're going to be going over the worst weapon from each weapon category in Cold War Zombies. This doesn't necessarily mean that the weapons that are bad, but hey, they could just be the worst, you know, like for shotguns. Everyone knows all shotguns are good. But if you haven't already, leave a like, subscribe, all that cool nonsense. Check out the links in the description. And if you don't subscribe right now, I'll literally come to your house and just break your balls, so get on it. Now, the worst weapon within the assault rifle category is the QBZ. Now, I don't know why. It's not terrible. It's just like something you really wouldn't use. The rate of fire is pretty alright on it. It's about at 850 rounds per minute, which is a little bit faster than, say, some of the other weapons. But, you know, not really good. I mean, I don't have it leveled up, but just standard alone, it doesn't have very big clip size. The damage on it only has a 4.2 headshot multiplier. So, overall, you know, there's like every other assault rifle almost has 4.4. Some of those with the 4.2, but they compensate for it with higher damage outputs. And this one doesn't really crack it out all too much. Plus, another thing about it is the hipfire actually is pretty alright. It's not necessarily the worst, but it's just something like, you know, it's just an alright weapon. It's not a horrible weapon, but definitely out of all the weapons that we got, this has got to be the worst in the assault rifle category, easily. Now, for the worst submachine gun, we have the KSP, or the Herald Woe. Now, this thing isn't exactly the best. You know, it's a burst submachine gun. If you really want, you know, if you wanted to use a burst weapon, you really could just use the M16, which is burst and does a way better job. You know, like, there's really no point in using this weapon. The damage is alright. It beats, you know, some of the other weapons within this weapon category. But the problem I have with this weapon is, you know, a submachine gun that's burst, come on, man. The rounds per minute is about 850. The damage is a little bit higher, like I said. The reload's pretty alright. But overall, you know, just why use the KSP? You know, it's just one of those things, like, you don't, it's like, oh boy, let's use the KSP. Like, no one ever, you know, it's just, the KSP, it's good in multiplayer, don't get me wrong, you know, there's some chances there, but nah, let's get into the tactical rifles, gamers. Now, the worst tactical rifle in the game has got to be the AUG, which is really upsetting because usually I really do enjoy the AUG, and I think it's a cool weapon, but it is a burst also, which it doesn't make any sense. There's just something about, like, they always want to make the AUG a burst or fully automatic. Same with the FAMAS, you know, burst or automatic, it always happens. They flip-flop. But, I mean, the damage on it is pretty alright. Like, I'm not going to lie, that out of all tactical rifles, you know, this is the worst, but it's definitely not, like, a terrible weapon. Like, it does pretty alright damage. You know, weapons like the DMR and, you know, the Type 63, you might be thinking that those might be worse, but they actually do some pretty good headshot multiplier damage. This one, in terms of all the other ones, does the least headshot multiplier damage. I think it's about 4.2, and then the others do about 4.4, 4.6, you know, which is pretty hard to beat, but, you know, the rounds per minute on this weapon is actually really decent. It feels really fast, really smooth, but one of my problems with this weapon is, you know, burst, and also the reload can take kind of some time. And also, you don't really get very high mag opportunities with this weapon with fast reloads, which is a little bit upsetting, but hey, it is. The AUG is pretty alright, you know. It's not a bouncy weapon, but it's just, you know, it's not the best out of the category. So, on that, gamers, let's get into the other weapon. Pretty fairly said that the M60 has got to be the worst weapon when it comes to light machine guns. There are plenty of, you know, other alternatives in terms of this category. You know, you only have 3 other ones. Doesn't seem like much, but they definitely do play a lot more different than the M60, and, you know, it's just not good. The rounds per minute is really slow. Using this weapon is slow. It's not a bad thing in terms of damage output. The reload's pretty slow. You know, it's not very good when in terms in that category, but the damage, pretty good, but, man, it's just too slow. Like, even if you put giant amounts of attachments on, if you max this bad boy out, you're still gonna be fairly slow with it. And it's something you really can't compensate for because it is an LMG, and you kind of have to understand that. But, you know, it does make up in other categories like the ammo and, like I said, the damage. It's just alright, though. It's not going to beat, like, an assault rifle when it comes to damage. It's not going to beat it in any other terms like that, but it's alright. You know, it's just an alright bad weapon at best, which is kind of upsetting because the M60 usually kind of good. Sniper rifles, I think this is kind of obvious. The ZRG, or the hand cannon. Man, this thing is so slow, but it packs a punch. Literally, I mean, 19,000, almost 20,000 damage with tier 1 alone, with just blue tier. Come on, man. I mean, that's some pretty good damage, but the main problem with this weapon is aiming down sight. I mean, this thing takes like almost 3 seconds to aim in, but you can take out some enemies pretty decently, you know, if you do have the time. It's basically impossible to use Rampage Inducer because, well, it's way too slow. You know, it's just not a good... It's not a good weapon overall. The reload's really slow. The range is great. The damage is great. You know, you can take out Megatons almost instantly. Like, if you played co-op and one of your friends just had one of these bad boys on, like, the side and you protected him, you could probably take out Megatons fairly quickly with a decent strat. But overall, a terrible weapon. It's just, you know, damage really good, slow weapon. I really do enjoy using the snipers in this game, even though they're bad. But the ZRG... it was pain. I literally had to use the Howler just to get this thing upgraded. There was no point of return. Once you're reloading this thing and you're about to down, it's wraps. It's way too slow. Pains me to say, but the Streetsweeper has probably got to be the worst shotgun in Cold War Zombies. It's great, okay? I don't care what anybody says. The shotgun is amazing. The only bad part of this weapon is literally the reload. You might be wondering, why are you playing on round 1? You know, you see that reload, it doesn't look too bad, you know, not too much. Maybe it could like 5-6 seconds to reload, 8 maybe. But when the zombies are fast, it's impossible. The only problem with this weapon, I would say pack-a-punching it and using speed cooler kind of compensates for it, but we're talking about the weapon by itself. You know, like there's, you know, nothing else right there. I mean, I know I've included Deadshot in this, but that's only damage, not reload, and it takes time. This weapon's reload is way too slow. They intentionally made it too slow. Everything else about the weapon is good. The range, considering it's a fully automatic shotgun. The damage, considering it's a fully automatic shotgun. The handling, you could train very well. You can camp very well with this weapon. And it's personally one of my favorite weapons in the game because it's just so unique and it's cool. Reminds me of the Striker 12 from Modern Warfare 2. Really good weapon. Also really fun to play with. But another problem with the weapon also is, even though you can, you know, spray, you run out of ammo just a little too quick in the magazine. You know, spraying a weapon for maybe 5 seconds, you gotta reload it for quite a bit of time, isn't really worth the payoff until you get about Sweet Cola and, you know, Pack-a-Punch. But hey, it kind of takes a while from like round 1 to 10 to get Pack-a-Punch, especially when you're reloading half the time and like the zombies will just ram you. Like literally, look at the gameplay. I mean, these guys eventually, you know, they're gonna eventually try to overrun me, but at the end of the day, you know, if you don't have that reload, you're toast. There's nothing you could do in any situation. You'll probably die instantly. Now, this is without any consideration whatsoever. The Sigma is just the worst one. I mean, the RPG is pretty slow, but this one definitely takes the cake. The reload is actually not too bad considering all things. You know, it is a pretty slow long rocket launcher, but the RPG, you know, you get a little bit more damage. No, yeah, you get a little bit more damage, but the payload of the weapon on this is a little bit better. But when we're thinking about the weapon itself, you know, we want to be maximizing the amount of damage because, well, if you're only doing a small percentage, it's not going to be that good compared to the RPG. You know, other than that, I mean, there's no really high amount of stats on this. Now, the M1911 pistols, I don't know why, but these just aren't that good. Like, I know you might be thinking, hey, maybe the Magnums, and you could be correct, but the damage on these is just a little too little. I mean, everything else on the gun is pretty good, you know, considering it is a pistol. The range isn't going to be, you know, like an assault rifle or, say, a sniper rifle. But the range could be a little bit more on these. I know I am using a suppressor, but alternatively, if you use these things in Outbreak, it's not going to be good. Even if you use a single hand where you can aim, it's just better to use the Diamatti, the Marshall, or even the Magnum, just because, you know, they have a little bit more range and they do a little bit more damage. The M1911 doesn't have nearly as much damage as the other ones, and that's kind of its, you know, downfall, considering range as well. You know, reload ain't too bad. Everything else. Plus, another thing is, you get this when you down. I know I just downed, but it's to show you that you do get it, and you can actually have it with your current equipment loadout for the pistol itself if you're running it as a weapon. You're never going to be able to pick yourself up past round 30 with this thing unless anything else helps in, you know, like Elemental Pop or, say, an ammo mod. It's got to be the worst one. Easily. the worst melee in the game has got to be the Sledgehammer. And you might be wondering, why are you doing Rampage Reducer once again on round 2? It's just show you how slow this weapon is. Now, every damage on melee is practically the same in Cold War. Let's be fairly honest. This weapon is slow, not even just slugging it around. You run with it slow. It's not really good, and it's kind of unfortunate because, you know, a Sledgehammer, it's a pretty cool weapon, right? But nah, it just doesn't do the job. It's understandable that it's slow, but it could give a little bit more in terms of damage, because you could use the Wakizashi blade, the knife, mace, baseball bat, and you know, you get my point. Okay, this weapon is slow. Okay, it's not gonna be good. You can pack a punch it to make it better in terms of damage, but you never actually get the whole thing of actually being faster, which is a little upsetting. You think Speed Cola maybe would compensate for this, but it doesn't, which is really weird. But I don't know why. It's just, it's got to be the worst, you know, not really good, not really fun. But hey, gamers, you know, if you haven't already, you know, leave a like, subscribe, all that cool nonsense. Really appreciate you. And sorry for the late uploads. Was a little busy these couple weekends, but if you know, if you haven't already, check out those links in the description, Twitter, you know, Discord, all that cool nonsense. But if you made it this far, you deserve a cookie, and I love you, button that gamers. I'll see you guys next one. Have a wonderful day. See ya.
Your hands are cold. Your movements